Well, hey, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for this installment of Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor is yours. What are the things that you guys want to talk about in this great big world of movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good stuff? That's what we're here to do. Open Mic, for those of you, maybe this is your first time here, is really more of a laid back, more kind of casual, informal, conversational version of the John Campea Show, where really what we do here is just take the questions that you guys have. Now, listen, there's two different ways for you guys to send in questions for me to address here on the show. The first way is if you're watching during one of the 23 hours that we're not streaming live, you can just use the tip link. That's at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. You can send one in there, or if you are watching live, and hello to everybody who is watching live, Elvang, Possum, Stevie, Cutto, Encino, everybody who's here, welcome to have you here. So if you are watching live, you want to send in a topic question, you can use the super chat feature that's there in the chat. And if your comment or question is appropriate for us to address here on the show, then I will address it here on the show. Good to have all you guys here. Had a fun show this morning with the John Campea Show with me, and Ray and Jonathan and Chris was here today. And I wanted to just kind of follow up. I felt like there was a lot more to talk about with regards to that, you know, that shattering, earth-shaking kind of article that Variety put out about the, you know, the current state of Marvel. And I just thought, you know, I know there were a lot of other people who wanted to chime in. We, of course, turned off the super chats in the earlier show. So I thought we would follow up on that conversation here and talk a little bit more about it. Now, for those of you who did watch the show this morning, you know, Variety wrote this article outlining a number of things, and there's also articles about, you know, the Mahershala Ali situation, about, you know, being relegated to the fourth most important character and some other things. Now, I've had a few people write to me today to let me know, hey, John, you know, somebody at Disney, one of the writers, came out and debunked the article. They said what's in the article isn't true. And I understand, because right now we live in an age right now where there are so many Gus's gas station movie review.fart outlets out there, including mine. Make no mistake, the John Campea YouTube channel is one of the Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart things. So I'm not one of the major or reliable outlets. I'm just, you know, I'm a YouTube channel. Here we go. I get it that we live in this age where, because what most people are used to now is the Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart websites, that, you know, somebody will run a headline based on something they heard from somebody who heard from somebody who heard from somebody. And thus, once it gets debunked, it's pretty easy to debunk. But the thing I want people to remember about real outlets like, say, Deadline or Variety, particularly Variety, is that Variety is one of these outlets that does not run with a story unless it has multiple, and I mean multiple, corroborating sources that all tell them the same thing. Like, they don't run with a story at Variety. And I say this as somebody who knows a couple of people who work at Variety. Variety is not one of these places that, oh, one reporter heard one thing from one person, blow it up as a headline. That's not how they operate there. They operate on we have to have multiple verifiable corroborating sources that are all telling us consistent information. And then, and only then, do they run with it as a story. Now, look, to be fair, even if you put in every bit of caution that you can, and even if you put in all due diligence and you do all the right things, when you're an outlet that writes like 40 stories a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, however many years, and you have tens of thousands of, like, every once in a while, you're going to write something that ends up not being real or not being true. It's going to happen. That happens. But if Variety wrote this, like I said, it's because they had multiple credible sources, verifiable sources inside that were all telling them the same thing. So I appreciate if like some writer who wrote on one thing at one point didn't either A, have that knowledge, or B, wasn't aware of it, or whatever reason comes on and says, no, that wasn't true. I appreciate that. But, you know, point me to 5 things in the past 3 years that Variety straight up got wrong. I don't think you can do it. I really don't think you can do it. In the last 3 years with the, you know, probably 4,000 articles they've read, point me to five items that they wrote, not guesses that they made, not predictions that they made, but actual things they stated as fact. Go ahead and point me to 5 things that ended up not being real or true. It was like, yeah. So I believe the article. But anyway, moving beyond that issue about whether or not I think you can believe the article in Variety, which I 100% believe you can. There was a menu, like not just one item. It was a menu, a laundry list, if you will, of all these problems that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is facing and the troubles that they're having. And they went over everything from the circus that was She-Hulk and all the problems with She-Hulk, the issues they had with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because their production schedules are so far behind that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was more finished than the Marvels was. So they moved up Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania 4.5 months, taking away 4.5 months of post-production time that they had, and moved it there, and then moved the Marvels over here. Then all the problems that they've had with the Marvels, and all the problems they've had with Blade, and all the problems they've had. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. And what I said on the show this morning is that all of the problems listed, right? All the problems that were listed, everything from shoddy pre-production work, a failure in script oversight, overstressed visual effects pipelines, mediocre output in product, like all these things, you can draw branches and trace them all back to the same one root problem. Kevin Feige is stretched too thin. And the Variety article, and I mentioned this and I talked about this morning, the Variety article pointed out that this all goes back to 2020, after the pandemic hit and all this kind of stuff. Bob Chapek is now in charge, and they made the decision and they put out a mandate. Well, after stripping Kevin Feige of a lot of his power and putting in extra layers of middle management, they sent out a mandate that they wanted there always to be either a Marvel film that's about to come out or a Marvel show that's on Disney Plus right now. And they put out this mandate to ramp up the amount of output that they were going to have. And somebody sent me the link to the video that Rob and I did like 3 years ago when Bob Chapek instituted the new command structure. And we said on that show, Rob and I both said on that show, he goes, you watch them taking power away from Kevin Feige, them adding all these layers of middle management. You are going to see the effects of this in 2 to 3 years. In 2 to 3 years, you're really going to see the effect of this. And here we are. Everything is stretched way too thin. Kevin no longer has as much input and direct control over the projects like he used to have. They simply are putting out too much content. And many people, including me, have been saying that for years, that the more and more content, the more and more output they keep adding, the lower and lower their overall quality level is going to drop. And lo and behold, here we are, 2 to 3 years later, right on cue. And that's where we're at. And yeah, so anyway, we did this big whole spiel about that earlier this morning. I wanted to give you guys more of an opportunity to chime in on that if you wished. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, I'm sure. But for now, let's get over and start taking the questions that you guys have been sending in, shall we? And we're going to start off with this. Dave Bauer writes, in my opinion, one of the most reprehensible creative decisions Disney ever made was the SGI reconstruction of Peter Cushing. You probably meant CGI. CGI reconstruction of Peter Cushing in Rogue One. Peter Cushing is, of course, the actor who played Grand Moff Tarkin in the original Star Wars. CGI reconstruction of Peter Cushing in Rogue One. I understand his family gave blessing, but they didn't decide his film roles when he was alive, nor should they now. With all due respect, Dave, I got to tell you, I disagree with you 100%. I disagree, respectfully, my film loving brother, but I disagree. The character of Grand Moff Tarkin is a Star Wars character. And because Peter Cushing played the role while he was alive, does not make the character Peter Cushing's. It's still their character. Now, that doesn't believe they should be allowed to use his image and his likeness without him, were he alive. Of course not. But he's not with us anymore, right? So does that mean that the character of Grand Moff Tarkin can no longer be used by Star Wars? I disagree. I think that's a ridiculous notion. Of course, Star Wars should still be able to use Grand Moff Tarkin. And if the only people who are still around to represent Peter Cushing say, yes, we give you our blessing, then I see zero problem with Star Wars reusing a character that is theirs and belongs to them, and they receive permission from the living family of Peter Cushing to say, yes, you may use the likeness of our deceased relative. As long as all that's above board, I got to tell you, I see zero problem with it. Now, whether or not, the CGI in the face was good CGI or not, that's a different topic altogether, right? That's whether it was good CGI or bad, that's another discussion. But yeah, what else are they supposed to do? It's like, oh, once an actor plays a role, the role belongs to them now. I disagree. It's still Star Wars' character. And if they wanted him to look like Grand Moff Tarkin looked before, and the family gives their blessing, what exactly is the objection? I mean, listen, in everything in life, I used to work in estate law a little bit. Like in the earliest days of me working in a law firm, I did like what every other law clerk does and everything like that. You work on the lowest of the lowest rung, which is working on estates, working on wills, living trusts, all that kind of stuff. But look, I can tell you that the surviving estate, the surviving family of somebody who's passed away gets to make all sorts of decisions for the person who has passed away. They get to make all the decisions for them. Their estate, unless it's specified in wills and things like that, they get to make a lot of the decisions. So allowing their likeness to still be used in a movie is completely within the reasonable and appropriate realm of their purview to do. So yeah, I got to say, man, with all due respect, I do completely disagree with you. I think it was a perfectly fine thing that they did as long as they got the family's permission. All right. With that down, let's get on to Old Guards of Asgard, right? Forget Baldur's Gate 3. Alan Wake 2 is the true game of the year, just for that scene. I'll be honest with you, Old Guards of Asgard, I don't know what we're talking about. So I can't comment on that because I literally have no idea what we're talking about. All right, BK Dan writes, John, just watched Open Mic for Wednesday, and I got to say, I'm going to start using the line, the revelation of Campea, the movie guy, LOL. You know what, BK Dan, I'm going to be honest with you. I cannot remember what that was in reference to. I don't remember on yesterday's Open Mic saying the revelation of Campea. What was that? What was that in context of? I just do so many shows. Sometimes I can't remember everything that I said. Yeah, so I'm not really sure about that. Sorry about that, BK Dan, but it does sound brilliant. It sounds really brilliant. All right, next up, Sam Fisher writes, John, Letterkenny announced its final season on Christmas. I did hear about this. Letterkenny announced its final season on Christmas Day / Boxing Day 2023. I'm really sad it's ending, but it's past its prime. It hasn't been as funny since like season 6. It's time. I didn't even finish the recent holiday special. I'm not going to lie to you. I fell off of Letterkenny fairly quickly. Like, I remember I discovered Letterkenny because a bunch of you guys told me about it. This is going back a number of years. You guys told me about it, and it was a Canadian show that started long after I left Canada, so I wasn't aware of it. And you guys sent me some clips, and some of the stuff from Letterkenny was so freaking funny. And so I watched the first couple of seasons, but I did find, for me, fairly quickly, the novelty of the show started to wear off. and I started to find it getting a little bit thinner. I mean, some of the early episodes are like, will still have me rolling on the floor in laughter, but I fell off it rather quickly. So I'll be honest with you, when I read the headline that Letterkenny was going to have its finale around Christmas, I thought it was already done. Because there's a Letterkenny spinoff show, right? And I thought the spinoff was coinciding with the ending of Letterkenny. So anyway, that's just me. All right. Thanks, Sam. Next up, B. Wayne, New York writes, like many, I was saddened by the recent passing of beloved actor Matthew Perry. I knew he was one of the stars of Friends, but what I didn't know was he was a huge Batman fan. He even drove a black Aston Martin, which he called his Batmobile. He was one of us. He actually really was a nerd. I remember watching some things on him and the various things he's into. He was even a little bit of a collector. He collected some figures. I wouldn't say he was as hardcore geeky as, say, Ben Affleck was, but he was definitely one of them. And, or one of us, I should say. I still, man, in my gym, without a word of a lie, in my gym, the UFC training center, every morning after Ann and I are done our workouts, they have something called the arm bar. Get it? Arm bar. And that's the name of their juice bar. Anyway, they have a thing called the arm bar, and almost every morning, Ann and I go in there and we get a drink called the Praying Mantis. And it's like a protein drink, it's got some peanut butter in it and like a lot of whey protein and whatever. But as we're standing there and they're preparing our shake, they have 3 TVs up, and one of the TVs every morning before Matthew Perry even died, they're playing Friends. There's always Friends episodes, right? So I guess it's some TBS network that runs Friends at that time of the day every day. And, going in there and watching it on screen this morning, I was, oh man, it really does suck. It really is. I spent a lot of time with Matthew Perry on my screen, and, a lot of people are very moved by his passing. All right. Amin writes, I saw Haunting in Venice during Halloween. Not a bad film, but not that great either. The production design was really good, though, and some cool cinematography. How do you rank the 3 Hercule Poirot films? For me, it's Nile, Venice, then Orient Express. I'll be honest with you, Amin, I thought Death on the Nile was terrible. I really did. And I say this as a big Kenneth Branagh fan. I love Kenneth Branagh. You guys know this. I think he's wonderful. I have not really been happy with any of this franchise. I thought Nile was the worst. I'm glad you thought it was the best. For me, it was just absolutely dreadful. So I will say Orient Express was my number 1. I'll go in actual complete opposite order of you. You had Nile, Venice, and then Orient Express. I'll go Orient Express, Haunting in Venice, which I didn't really like, but it wasn't terrible. And I'll put Death on the Nile last. I really thought that movie was really quite bad. I thought it was really quite bad. All right, guys, listen. More questions to get to, but before we do, we're about 20 minutes in now. We're going to take a quick moment here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode, our friends at Marine Lair and the maker of the most comfortable shoes I've ever worn, and they're waterproof, Vessi. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Marine Lair. It's official, guys. I have found the softest t-shirt of all time, so soft, it's ridiculous. All thanks to the San Francisco-based Marine Lair. Marine Lair is the go-to brand for great fitting and stylish closet staples. Their clothes are that perfect mix of laid-back style and also looks and feels premium. It's time to invest in a wardrobe that will actually last. For a limited time, the John Campea Show viewers and listeners get an exclusive 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. Now, guys, I am not the most fashionable guy in the world, but I appreciate a good looking shirt. But more importantly, I appreciate a comfortable shirt. And the shirts that I've got from Marine Lair fit both of those beautifully. And they've even got sizes like Marge, which is in between medium and large, so everyone can get their perfect fit. The best part, if you buy any 3 tees from Marine Lair, you automatically get 20% off. And Marine Lair goes way beyond just t-shirts too. They've got super laid back overshirts, pants, pants, jackets, and all the cozy layers you want for the cooler seasons. I think we can all admit that the perfect tee can be hard to find. Look no further than Marine Lair. For a limited time, get 15% off with the code CAMPEA15 at marinelair.com. That's Campea15 for 15% off your entire order at marinelair.com. Saving your closet one shirt at a time. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Vessi. Now, you guys know I'm not exactly the most fashion conscious guy in the world, but I love a great pair of shoes that are comfortable and I can wear almost anywhere. And growing up in Canadian winters when my feet got wet a lot, waterproof would be nice too. Enter Vessi. They make the claim that they're not just fashionable and super comfortable, they're also waterproof. Now, you guys remember, when I got my first pair of Vessis, I put them to the ultimate waterproof test. I actually stuck my foot in my pool, my feet stayed dry, and the shoes stayed dry. Incredible. And they're the most comfortable pair of shoes I ever owned. Well, that made me want another pair. So I got another pair of Vessis that look great and just equal that world-class comfort that I got from that first pair of shoes. They are absolutely my favorite shoes that I've ever owned. Imagine your favorite sneaker style supercharged with waterproof technology and unmatched comfort. No matter how you like to stay active, Vessi has the shoes for you. Trail-ready high tops, effortless slip-ons, and classic court shoes, all with a waterproof twist. They are just as comfortable and stylish as your favorite sneakers, but even more versatile. So guys, if you're anything like me and you want the most comfortable pair of shoes that look great, that you can take out hiking, wear to work, go to the gym, or walk through the water and snow, go to vessi.com/Campea and get yourself a pair today. Go to vessi.com/Campea and get 15% off your order using the code Campea. And thank you to our friends at Marine Lair and Vessi for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, let's get back to it here, shall we, with your questions. And we're going to pick things up here with, where are we at? We have now moved over to David Cushmore. And David Cushmore writes, do you think that the Minnesota Timberwolves can surprise anyone this season? Are they going to be a playoff contender this year? Are you a KG fan back in the day? Anything is possible. Oh, I especially started to like Kevin Garnett when he went to the Boston Celtics. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Garnett was a fabulous player. Towns, McDaniels, Connolly, Gobert. I mean, they've got a nice lineup, but what are they right now? Like 2-2? 1-2, 2-2, something like that. The West is always a fight. So, I mean, I'm going to guess no, but they certainly have the talent to get into the playoffs. But even if they did get into the playoffs, I don't see them making a lot of noise this year, but you never know. All right. Next up, let's see here. Luke1234 writes, what would you do if Star Wars introduced time travel or the multiverse? Well, I mean, there were some people in the live chat that were talking about this a little bit before the show started that I caught, and somebody brought up something that I was going to mention, which is they already kind of have introduced time travel with World Between Worlds and dimension jumping and all that kind of stuff, and so they've already kind of done that. But, you know, not like Back to the Future. Let's hop in my DeLorean X-Wing and go back to 5 years before the Battle of Yavin. Like, if they did, I would be very uncomfortable with it. I think time travel storytelling is very lazy storytelling. But like anything else, while I would be disappointed that they're doing it, and I would not be very optimistic about it, I would still then check it out. Because while I don't like time travel in stories, there are a couple that I really do like. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the aforementioned Back to the Future, right? There are times that it really works. Just like I don't really like multiverse stuff at all, but there are examples of when it does work for me. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, for an example like that, right? So I would be disappointed that they were doing it, but I would give it a shot and see if it worked out or not. All right. Next up, we've got Kyle Schneider, who writes, game day. Priscilla at 6:35. Ooh, Gen V, Loki, and Invincible Season 2 when I get home. If they're all great, it'll be a perfect quadruple marathon. Yeah, I mean, tonight's some good stuff, man, because I got my Thursday night football. Yeah, I'm a big sports fan. I got my Thursday night football. I've got the season finale of Gen V, which has been spectacular. spectacular. I can't believe how good this show has been. Then the second to last episode of Loki season 2, I have very much preferred Loki season 2 over Loki season 1. I did not love Loki season 1, but this has been a really fun ride. It's been more focused. It's been very Loki centric, even though you're bringing in, Victor Timely and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's sung so far. Here's hoping they nail the landing with the final 2 episodes. And then, as people reminded me this morning, I totally forgot that Invincible season 2 launches tonight. Now, I don't love Invincible season 1. I mean, I love it, but I don't love it on the same level that some other people do. Like, I don't think it's nearly as good as Arcane, or it's not as good as The Boys or stuff like that, but it was really good. Like, I really enjoy it. And I'm excited about watching season 2. And by the way, I've read some advanced reviews of the first few episodes of Invincible season 2, and it's all been good. So fingers crossed, a lot of stuff to watch on TV tonight, man. A lot of stuff to watch on TV tonight. All right, next up. That was Kyle. Next up, we got David Cushmore, who writes, the Street Fighter movie was 1995, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Oh, I remember. So the other day, David wrote in about all these fighting video games, and I didn't know if he was talking about video games or movies. So at any rate, the Street Fighter movie was 1995. Remember that one. They did another one, by the way, after that. Dead or Alive movies 2005, and a Tekken movie. I have no recollection of a Tekken movie. That's probably why I thought you were talking about the games and not movies, because I have no recollection whatsoever of a Tekken movie. Anyway, Tekken was 2009. Does this ring a bell? The Tekken one doesn't. Anyway, sorry about the confusion as of late. Mortal Kombat movie was 1992. Of course, with the great Highlander, Christopher Lambert, playing Lord Raiden. I still don't know how do you get Christopher Lambert to play Lord Raiden? Like that? We will see. I don't understand. And I love Christopher Lambert, Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod, my friends. I just don't get why you get Christopher Lambert to play Lord Raiden. But yeah, at any rate, so the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie is a crime against humanity, but it was goofy fun if you were into Street Fighter. Dead or Alive, I have no I remember the movie, but I have no recollection of watching it. Tekken, again, I didn't even know that existed. And of course, Mortal Kombat, a movie that is absolutely terrible. Make no mistake, the original Mortal Kombat movie is terrible, but I love every awful minute of it. I've watched that movie probably 100 times. And also, without any joke, no sarcasm, no irony, I love one of the best soundtracks ever. Like the soundtrack for the original Mortal Kombat movie, one of the best soundtracks I've ever listened to. I love Juke Joint Jezebel. I love that soundtrack. I don't know if any of you ever even heard the soundtrack, but the soundtrack is so good. Robert is saying in the live chat, we don't need to talk about Mortal Kombat Annihilation. You're absolutely right. We don't need to talk about that movie. But yeah, that first one, man, I acknowledge it's awful. It's a terrible movie, but I love it. I so love it. So very, very much. Anyway, okay. Next up, we got DatBoy22, who writes, hey, John, I remember back in 2021, I'd watched the new MCU show with my family, and starting last year, I've had to watch by myself as they have checked out. Yeah. And you know what? You're not the only person that has written in to kind of express that. And it's not just the Marvel Disney Plus shows, even the Star Wars ones to a degree. Like, remember, we had Sean Chandler on the show. It was great having Sean on. Sean Chandler was on the show a couple times last week, or I've lost track of time. It was either last week or 2 weeks ago. Anyway, and he was talking about that. Hey, started watching the Star Wars shows on Disney Plus with the whole family. And then the wife dropped off, and then the one kid dropped off, and then the last kid who was hanging in there with him dropped off too. And now it's just Sean watching them when they come on. I mean, look, and it's so weird too, because when you look back, The Marvel Cinematic Universe on Disney Plus started with a bang. WandaVision. Still the best thing they've ever had out. Like on their side, on the MCU side, it's WandaVision. On the Star Wars side, it's Andor. But like they came out swinging. Absolutely swinging with WandaVision. And they crushed that show, man. They knocked it out of the park. Dr. Sting is saying Loki's better. Don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh. Anyway, WandaVision was just on such another level. You could tell the impact it was having too, because for 2 months on the John Campea Show, like people would write in and say, you might as well rename this to the WandaVision Show, because that's all everybody always, every single day for 2 solid months. It was people writing in theories, thoughts, opinions, questions about WandaVision, 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 every single day. We not only had to do after, like we were talking WandaVision all day on the John Campea Show, then talking WandaVision all afternoon on Open Mic. And then when the episode would come out, we'd be doing WandaVision after show. And we would even have to do companion videos. You guys remember this? We had to do multiple companion videos just to keep up with everybody talking about WandaVision. That didn't happen with Loki. That didn't come anywhere near happening with Loki or any other of the MCU shows, to be honest. It didn't happen for any of the other ones. Not to single out Loki. I mean, it didn't happen with any of the other ones. But with WandaVision, man, that's all, for those of you who were around back when that happened on my channel, I mean, that's all people talked about for months, for absolute months. And they haven't been able to replicate that. I mean, I think Ms. Marvel was fabulous. I think Ms. Marvel was great, but that didn't generate the conversation that WandaVision did either. It's just, it was, and then on the Star Wars side, I mean, you came out of the gate, obviously, with Mandalorian. That got a lot of our attention. We love Mandalorian, particularly season 1 and season 2. Not so much season 3. But yeah, they have lost. Actually, I saw a new story come out that said Nielsen just put out the stats. They said Loki season 1's premiere was down 35%. It was either 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, somewhere. I'll just say 35 for now. But they say Loki season 1's debut episode was down 30+% from the first Loki, which tells you that people haven't been clamoring to come back to it. And it's also kind of a representation of where Marvel is as a whole, right? Because the last thing people watched was Secret Invasion, and that ended really badly. So people are less likely to come back for the next MCU show. And yeah, I mean, it was a significant drop, and we'll see if the numbers go up or if they're going down. I personally think Loki season 2 has been very good. Like I'm right on board with it. I really like it. But yeah, I mean, this promise that Disney's Plus started with, coming out of the gate with things like starting with Mandalorian and then WandaVision for Marvel. I mean, it really looked like this was going to be great, and it's just kind of sputtered. There's been flashes of brilliance here and there, Ms. Marvel, Andor, things like that. There have been flashes of brilliance, but overall, I feel like Your Family, Amin, with more and more people, or not Amin, sorry, Your Family, Dat Boy, like slowly falling off. I feel like that's a representation of like the whole viewing audience to a degree, but yeah, that's just what it is. All right. Next up, we got David Kushmer, who writes, do you watch the Resident Evil movies? I believe I've seen them all. I might have skipped out on 1 or 2 of them. I've liked none of them. I remember me and Schnepp would argue about that, because Schnepp was somebody who appreciated the Resident Evil movies. I thought they were all bad. Some not horrible, but I didn't think any were good. But that's just me. All right, next up, Bobby Jackson writes, hey, John. Do you think if Marvel reduces the output of movies and shows per year, it will appease fans wanting things to still connect without having to do homework of watching so many things to keep up? Well, I mean, that'll help, right? That will help. But again, take the formula out of it. Reducing the number of projects they put out is a means to an end. It's not a new formula. Doing less doesn't automatically equal better. Doing less means more time, attention, care, and focus can be put into each individual project without Kevin Feige getting himself spread way too thin, which will hopefully lead to better movies. Look, I've said this before, I will say it again. There is no such thing as comic book movie fatigue. What there is mediocrity fatigue. There's a fatigue of mediocrity in these projects. Because when the comic book genre was humming and like all this stuff that was coming out was great and awesome, there's no such thing. Nobody talked about comic book movie fatigue. And I guarantee you, if Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania had been amazing, if Thor: Love and Thunder had been amazing, if Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness had been amazing, if Secret Invasion had been amazing, if She-Hulk had been amazing, nobody would be talking about comic book movie fatigue. Like, everybody pretends it's just a coincidence. It's just a coinky-dink that when we hit a period of time when the overall quality of these projects has dropped, that's also when interest has dropped. It's not a coincidence. It is cause and effect. They are connected. When the overall quality starts to drop, you're going to see interest start to drop. If all these things were fabulous and fantastic, it would be just as hot as ever. Because we've gone like 15 years of it being the most excitable thing, the thing everybody gets most hype about, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as the quality starts to drop, it's not a coincidence that's when interest starts to drop. And if they can get back, and I'm not just talking about Marvel, I'm also talking about DC. If they can get back to putting out quality content after quality content after quality content, you're going to see the interest heights come way back again. Whether or not there's 3 comic book movies a year, 6 comic book movies a year, whatever. The reason I believe Marvel needs to cut back, and I've been saying this for years, cut back on the amount of product they're putting out is not because of comic book movie fatigue. It's because by putting out more product, less quality is going into them overall. And you got to raise the quality. That's the number one priority. And so will it help them make the universe less convoluted if they do less projects? Yeah, I think so. But at the end of the day, you just got to make good movies, man. You just got to make good movies. All right. Thanks a lot for writing that in, Bobby. Next up, we've got Marcus Penner, who writes, a possible pivot pitch for Marvel if Majors is guilty. Have Sylvie abandon or betray Loki once again. You can't do that because nobody cares about Sylvie. Sorry, but it's true. Have Sylvie abandon or betray Loki once again, maybe killing Mobius, and this undoes Loki's reformation, leading him to taking over time by killing the Kang variants. Oh, by the way, Marcus made that a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, man, for supporting us on that level, man. I appreciate that. No, here's the thing. They have spent so much time, energy, and effort giving us this massive Loki redemption arc over the course of years that I don't think they're suddenly going to go, now let's make Loki the bad guy. Remember, Loki was the big villain. He was the big villain in Thor. He was the big villain in the first Avengers movie. They've been there, done that, right? So I don't know that you would have, and number one, it would piss off a lot of people that after all these years of trying to build this redemption arc for Loki, you just throw it away. So I think that would turn a lot of people off. I mean, I'd be okay with it if you came up with a great story for it, but it can't have anything to do with Sylvie because I think the majority of the people who watch Marvel movies do not watch Loki and therefore don't really even know who she is. But that aside, but the second and bigger problem is you're going to go back to a villain that you already did in season 1 and that the Avengers have already beat and have gone on to face several other more powerful beings than him. I just don't know that that would work, to be honest with you. Like, I like that you're thinking outside the box and trying to come up with these creative ways that what can Disney do if Jonathan Majors is found guilty? And we hope that he's not. We hope it turns out that the allegations aren't true. But if he's found guilty, what does Marvel do? They got to do something. I just, for those two reasons, I don't know that Loki is the answer, though. Right? You're going to alienate people who want to see him continue on his redemption arc. And you're just reusing a villain that already got beat, and frankly, beat kind of easy. Hulk, anybody? Boom, boom, boom. Puny God. Boom. Like, really? That's the new big bad? I don't know that that works. I don't know that works. But I like that you're thinking outside the box, Marcus. I really do. All right. That down. Let's go on to Poriah writes, crazy that She-Hulk had a $225 million budget. House of the Dragon had a $200 million budget. Yeah. I mean, look, one of the things that was pointed out in the in that Variety article was spending has gotten way out of control at Marvel. Now, there are some things they do that they spend a lot of money on where all of us can go, yeah, we see where you spent that money. $225 million for She-Hulk. I mean, granted, you had not just She-Hulk, you had Abomination, you had a number of like heavy CGI characters. I still don't see how that added up to $225 million. What did they say? It ended up being like what? Like 25 million an episode or something like that? I don't know. Hard to see. And then you look at what HBO did with House of the Dragon for 200 million. And I'll tell you what, House of the Dragon, that looks a lot more visually impressive than She-Hulk did. By the way, did you know they used the volume for House of the Dragon? I guess they got, they rented out the volume and they got to use the volume for that. Yeah, it's really hard to see. And again, look, She-Hulk is just one of those things. That was a show that could have been so good. It could have been so good. But you're making a comedy and you don't have any writers that know how to write comedy. Like, and I remember I really liked the first episode. Like, I remember when they dropped, and I was excited about She-Hulk. They dropped that. I thought like an Ally McBeal legal procedural show within this world of Marvel. Such a fresh idea, different way of looking at the MCU and all that kind of stuff. Great idea. They got good Canadian girl, Tatiana Maslany, Emmy Award winning actress Tatiana Maslany in there to play She-Hulk. Mwah, chef's kiss. Beautiful. Set up for success. First episode comes out. Loved it. Loved it. Loved the first episode. Then it started to go downhill. And you just realize, like, after they did this great job in episode 1 of setting up what the show is, it really didn't become a legal procedural at all, which is fine if it's funny, but it was never funny. And I just ended up, I'm sitting there like in my theater room, sitting there watching every episode of She-Hulk and just going, at some point, am I going to laugh? I love the Daredevil stuff. I still think the Daredevil, two things that I give a big fuck you to everybody. I don't care. I don't care. If everybody disagrees with me, being right is often lonely. Two of the things that did make me laugh in this horribly unfunny show, the Daredevil walk of shame, carrying his boots over his shoulder. I nearly died. I laughed so hard. So I laughed at that hilariously. The other thing that I absolutely loved, and I don't care how many people boo-hoo, we don't like this, but She-Hulk twerking with, was it Megan Thee Stallion? Was that who it was in that? Her doing that, which, by the way, anybody complaining about that never read a She-Hulk comic, because that's exactly what She-Hulk would do. But anyway, She-Hulk twerking with Megan Thee Stallion. It hit me so off guard, and watching, like, I'm just trying to envision the people, like the CGI artists having to Put that together also in CGI. I don't care what anybody else says. In that horribly, horribly, horribly unfunny show, that was one of the very few shining, hilarious moments to me that I did laugh. And maybe that's where the budget went. Who was it? Marcus Y in the live chat is saying that's where the CGI budget went. You know what? If that's where the CGI money went, money well spent, because I laughed my ass off at that part. Unfortunately, almost nothing else in She-Hulk, which is supposed to be a comedy, could make me laugh. And doesn't matter. If you're a comedy that's not funny, you can't save it. You can't save it. If you're almost any other kind of film, you can fail at one aspect or another aspect or another aspect. There are still other things you can do in your film well that can salvage the film. But in comedy, nothing else matters. You could have the greatest performances ever. You could have the most interesting story ever. You could have the greatest dynamic between two characters ever. If it's a comedy and it's telling jokes and they're not funny, it's dead. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. On the opposite of that, comedy is the one genre that if you do everything else wrong, but you make the audience laugh, you get a pass. You can have a terrible script, terrible direction, bad visual effects, an unbelievable story, convoluted plot holes. Doesn't matter. You can do all of that wrong. If you're a comedy and you're advertised as a comedy and you make the audience laugh on purpose, you make the audience laugh, you get a check mark. You get a pass. Totally do. Because that's what we're there for. We're there for the laughs in a comedy. You fail like She-Hulk did, nothing you can do to save it. And even though they did some other things pretty good in She-Hulk, I got to give them credit. They did a couple of things good, but you were an unfunny comedy. Hard to recover from that, my friends. Hard to recover from that. All right. Next up, we got Mike's Movie Madness, who writes, John, Shogun just dropped their first trailer and it's amazing. Have you seen it? Yes. Yes, my friends. I have finally seen the new trailer for Shogun. This is a show I've been waiting for somebody to redo my whole life. Oddly enough, it was a book that was way beyond me, but my mom had James Clavell's Shogun. And even though I didn't understand half the stuff I was reading, I read that book because I got my hands on the book. And then they did the miniseries, again, when I was like a little kid. But the miniseries was great. And I've always thought this is one you need to redo. And when they announced Shogun at that Disney Investor Day call a couple of years ago, I got so excited. And that trailer today, chef's kiss, perfection. Absolute perfection. And we're going to talk about it more on the John Campea Show tomorrow. All right, next up, King Daddy Goat writes, Deadpool 3 Blades of Gory. So me and Rob were talking about Deadpool 3 possible titles, and Rob said, if they didn't use it for that skating movie, of course, that's the Will Ferrell, John Heder film, Blades of Glory, another comedy that wasn't very funny. Anyway, and unfortunately, you can't use Blades of Glory because it's taken. Blades of Gory. I'm down. I like it. I will send this off to see if it can get picked up because that's a good title. All right. Brian Williams writes, why doesn't Marvel stick to a movie format? If the Guardians of the Galaxy could be introduced in 2 hours, why can't all heroes be the same? Just make movies for Disney Plus instead of shows. Thanks. Bring on the filthy. No. I look, if you're going to do TV, the better thing to do is, hey, let's figure out how to do TV right? Let's figure out how to do TV the right way. Rather than let's just forget it and just make movies that go straight to Disney Plus. But then the question becomes, well, why are you making a movie to go straight to Disney Plus? What's the point? Like, if you're going to go through the energy, effort, and everything of making a movie, put it in cinemas, man. Put it in theaters. So the best thing for them to do is what they are currently doing. They are going to do television the right way. Shows are now going to have things that Disney Plus shows have never had. Showrunners. Imagine that. Showrunners who are going to be creatives who are actually in charge of their creation. Wild. It's weird to think that none of the Disney Plus shows have had actual showrunners, and now they're going to do that. And they're not just going to make limited series. They're going to start plotting out a show that how it can have a couple of seasons, multiple seasons, and start planning out those seasons before they go into it. They're actually going to have pilots to make sure that ideas work before they commit to a full 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 episode order. They're going to basically start functioning like traditional television networks, say like HBO. They're going to start acting more that way, and I think we're going to see good results. So I think I prefer that much more, Brian, than the concept of, well, let's just make movies and put them on Disney Plus, because I think if you're going to make movies, put those in theaters. But anyway, that's just kind of my opinion on that. So we'll see how that all shakes out. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Brian. Appreciate it, man. Azaz writes, the Fall Guy trailer was amazing. Have you seen it? Yep. I loved it. I thought it was really good. We were actually going to talk about it today on the John Campea Show, but the problem is we were packed. The show was packed today. I like to have 4 topics. We'll often do 5. Sometimes we need to do 6. I'm not comfortable with that. And today we had 7. There was just no room to talk about it. At any rate, the Fall Guy trailer, I really liked it. It was similar to the, they gave us a presentation on Fall Guy at CinemaCon back in April. And this was very similar to that. I think it looks great. Emily Blunt's in there. You got a good Canadian kid, Ryan Gosling. You've got why am I freezing on Kick-Ass's name? I was just talking about him and I said his name and now I'm freezing on his name. Anyway, got Kick-Ass in there, 3-name boy. Anyway, it looks fantastic. I think if all 3 of those people are going to sign up for it, they must have liked what they read in the script. So here's hoping, fingers crossed. Here's hoping that it works. Aaron Taylor Johnson. Thank you. The viewer put that in. He put Aaron Taylor M. Probably meant Aaron Taylor Johnson is the guy who did that. All right. Next up, we've got Robert Presser, who writes, I think Bottoms is slightly better than Joyride. You know what? Joyride is simply the funniest movie I've seen since The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And you guys know 40-Year-Old Virgin is my all-time favorite comedy. I honestly think Joyride to me is the funniest movie I've seen since 40-Year-Old Virgin. But I'm hearing lots of good things about Bottoms. And I'm going to probably have to check it out because, and I've been saying that for a while, but I've been hearing really funny things. Robert saw it too. Like Robert thought Joyride was better than Bottoms, but he said Bottoms is hilarious. So, I mean, I got to check it out. By the way, let me ask you guys in the live chat, do any of you guys know where Bottoms is streaming right now? Like, if any of you know, go ahead and throw that in the live chat right now. I know there's about a 10-second delay, but I'm going to take a sip and then keep my eye on the live chat. King Daddy writes on tops. Anybody know? Nobody knows? Or is it even out there? Oh, Chazarus is saying it's PVOD only. So you actually got to buy it. Okay. So it's not like on Max or Netflix or anything right now. No, Johnny Vu is saying it's on HBO. Can anybody confirm that? And Tony's is saying Prime Video. That's probably paying for a view. And I don't mind buying it. I don't mind paying for it to watch it. I'm just, if it is available somewhere that's on like for free streaming, I'll check it out. But anyway, I'll go take a look for it and watch it. Not tonight, because I got Gen V, Loki, Invincible Season 2, Thursday Night Football. I got a lot to do tonight, but I'll get caught up on that. All right. Guys, you know what? We're going to take another quick, we got a bunch more questions to get to. And by the way, once we're through all these questions, I'm going to go over and start taking questions from the live chat just to be fun. But before we do, we're going to take a minute and thank a couple of more sponsors of today's episode. Our friends, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile, and the providers of the greatest teeth brushing experience I've ever had. I know that sounds funny to say, but it's true. Quip. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Quip. Guys, you know that good health starts with good habits, and Quip makes it easy by delivering all the oral care essentials that you need to care for your mouth. For example, their incredible electric toothbrush. Guys, I've been using electric toothbrushes for years, and this is easily the best one I've ever owned. Timed sonic vibrations with 30-second pulses to guide a dentist-recommended 2-minute clean. A lightweight and sleek design for adults and kids with no wires or bulky charger to weigh you down. Reusable handles in a range of sleek metal hues, as well as bright plastic colors, sure to make a pop on your bathroom counter. Skip the batteries and snap into healthy habits with the new rechargeable electric toothbrush. All the features of the original Quip, plus one magnetic charge, powers up to 3 months of brushing. In addition to brush heads, Quip also delivers fresh floss, toothpaste, mouthwash, and gum refills every 3 months from just $7. So if you go to getquip.com/Campea right now, you'll get 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, or water flosser. That's your 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, water flosser at getquip.com/Campea. That's GETQUIP.com/Campea. Quip, the good habits company. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile and Quip for sponsoring this episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's get back to your questions here, shall we? We're going to pick things up here with Tim, who writes, game day. Anyone from the boys showing up tonight? You know, I have a feeling, I don't know the answer, but I have a feeling if it is anybody, it's going to be one of those other auxiliary characters, right? You know, like we had the girl who's now the head of VOT. We had the woman running for vice president show up. Like, these side characters have been there. I don't know if we're going to get another like Soldier Boy or another The Deep. I mean, maybe Homelander pops up, but you know what? And here's the thing. This show has been so good. I don't care if any members of the boys show up or any main characters from the boys. Like, this isn't like an MCU show where the only thing you have to look forward to is in an MCU show is, ooh, does this character show up? Ooh, does this character show up? Like, this show is so good, it doesn't need it. And when they have done it, they've only done it with auxiliary characters that make sense to the narrative. So, I don't know, but listen, the way they've done it so far has been really good. Like, especially the way they did the Soldier Boy appearance was absolutely hilarious. Like, really, really funny, but we'll see what they do tonight. I'm so excited, but also so bummed out that it's the last episode. All right. Jesse Price writes, hey, John, my grandpa passed away on Monday. I'm so sorry to hear that, man. And wanted to thank all you guys for what you do every day to make it easier to deal with the situation. Jesse, really, really sorry to hear that. I am somebody who has lost 3 of my 4 grandparents. I lost my nonna and my nonno just like in the last couple of years. My nonna passed away just earlier this year. And it's awful losing a grandparent. Dude, it is. But you know, one of the great things about, again, I talk about this a lot, is in the movies and the movie loving community is the idea that, you know, it's the movies give us a reprieve, right? But also I think getting together with other movie fans online or in person, whatever, is also giving us that reprieve. And it's one of the great things about movies and being part of the community that loves them. And I'm glad the community's been able to be here for you in this time. And again, our deepest condolences to the loss of your grandparent, man. All right. Next up, we've got Chino, who writes, why is Loki trying to save the TVA? Because we live in it? Well, remember, I mean, it's also part of, he's trying to save the TVA because from his understanding, saving the TVA is going to save the universe, right? He wants to save the universe. And he's part of it, right? So part of it is self-preservation. Part of it is not wanting millions to die needlessly and all that kind of stuff. I think it's all kind of wrapped up in that. All right. Rachel Knight Online writes, finally saw Tom Cruise's Mummy on Halloween. And the whole time I was wondering, why didn't Universal just make a Van Helsing series? It feels like a lot of issues could have been avoided that way. No, Rachel, no, it wouldn't. Wouldn't have solved any problems. Because here's the thing. The problem with the Mummy movie and their monster universe, their dark universe that they were trying to create, was not that the Mummy happened in modern times, or that the Mummy did this, or the Mummy did that. None of that was the problem. The problem was they simply just didn't make a good enough movie. Now, to be honest with you, I'm one of the people that I don't think Tom Cruise's The Mummy was quite as bad as many people make it out to be. It wasn't great, but I don't think it was like this steaming pile, terrible car wreck of a film that some other people, it wasn't very good. It certainly wasn't something that was going to kickstart a whole new shared cinematic universe. And the very fact that they were trying to kick off an entire cinematic universe and were announcing all these movies in their cinematic universe before the first movie ever came out, massive mistake on their part. Massive mistake on their part. And so here's the thing. If they had come out and done, say, a Van Helsing series, if it wasn't good, it doesn't change anything, right? It's all about making a good movie. If Tom Cruise's Mummy had been great, no problem. They would have moved forward with their dark universe and everything would have been fine. If they had tried to do a Van Helsing series, which I don't know that there was a lot of interest from the general public for a Van Helsing series, but if they had done a Van Helsing thing and it was as bad as The Mummy, then it would have suffered the same fate. They would have come out with their first outing, the audience would have rejected it, and they'd be right back to square one. So it's not about whether you do this one or this one. It's about whichever one you pick, make sure you do it well. And that at the end of the day is really the main thing. I think we can agree on that, Rachel, that that's kind of the main thing. Now, there was a Van Helsing thing out, of course, played by Wolverine, Hugh Jackman. We all do not remember that fondly, unfortunately. You know what? And now that you mention it, I mean, the mythology of Van Helsing and the different ways you could play around with it and take some liberties with it, there could be something interesting there. Maybe. I wouldn't mind them taking a shot at it. But again, if they had just given it the same personnel, the same attention, and they had the same poor quality control on it back when they did The Mummy, they'd just be right back in the same spot that they're in right now. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Rachel. Now I'm going to be thinking about a Van Helsing series. All right. I'll think about that. All right. Devin Lida writes, also, have you seen Boogie whatever's documentary? No idea what we're talking about, Devin. Sorry about that, man. Next up. Caleb writes, I really enjoyed Push by Ryan Gosling and Barbie. I don't know what we're talking about. I mean, I really liked Ryan Gosling and Barbie, but what was Push? Did he sing a song called Push that I'm not remembering? I don't know what we're talking about. Anyway, let's see. Next up, but his song, I'm Just Ken. I'm just Ken, where I see love, she sees a friend. It's such a good song. 'Cause I'm Ken and I'm enough, and I'm good at doing stuff. So some people in the live chat are saying, yes, it's the song Push. Which song is Push? Oh, you're talking, there's not an original song in the movie Push. You're talking about the classic, I wanna push you around. Okay, I was thinking of an original song. I'm trying, what other original song did he sing in that? But yes, now I got what you're saying. Okay. Samuel Shin writes, what were your thoughts on the report where they considered pivoting to Doom instead of Kang? I think they should stick the course with a new actor. If Majors is guilty, that's just me. I don't know if there's any validity. I don't know what the source. I've seen that story flying around all over the place. I'm not quite sure if that was part of Variety's little series expose. It wasn't in the main article that I read, but maybe it was in one of those. So I don't know. I am 100% sure though, 100% sure that there were probably 40 names other than Doom bandied about. And here's the thing too. The problem is they're not just looking at maybe pivoting away from Kang because of Jonathan Majors. I think they're considering pivoting away from Kang because the multiverse saga has not worked. And the direction they're heading in, no one's getting excited. No one's excited. And I think when you put those two together, so I can 100% believe that the idea of Doom was floated around, but I 100% guarantee you that on top of Doom, there's probably like 10 or 15 other names have been thrown around. I'll bet you anything Apocalypse has been thrown around. I'll bet you anything Magneto has been thrown around. I'll bet you anything, name your villain that they haven't used yet. I bet you anything there were probably a lot of names that were thrown out there and not just Doom. And they don't have time to build up a Doom or have him be the next big baddie. Elvang is saying Thanos' brother. Well, is Star Fox? I mean, they did introduce Star Fox, so why not? Maybe bring Star Fox in as the next big bad. But yeah, again, I don't think, see, if it was just a matter of, hey, just stick the course and recast if you need to. If Jonathan Majors was the only issue, I 100% agree with you. 100%. I think if for whatever reason things go bad and Jonathan Majors gets convicted of something, you just recast. But if their concern is larger and they're worried about even just the overall, like forget the Jonathan Majors stuff. They're just worried about the direction they're going and they may want to pivot away from Kang, not because of Jonathan Majors, but for narrative reasons. Yeah, I could see them talking about Doom, but I guarantee you, again, 100% guarantee you, in those conversations where the Doom name came up, I guarantee you there were dozens of others' names brought up too. 100%. All right. Next up, Freeman Films writes, how does a union strike work? If someone has a contract and commitment, are they held to that obligation or does the strike supersede all legal contracts? Here's the thing. And look, I am not a labor union expert. Okay. So take this in the broadest of layman terms. Thank you. So the AMPTP, representing all the big major studios, they enter into what's called collective bargaining, right? And the actors have formed a union that gets to represent their interests in collective bargaining. And they make a legally binding agreement with each other that supersedes everything else, right? So yes, if I'm a member of SAG, and SAG goes on strike, then even though I have a contract with you to be in your movie, if SAG is striking against you, our collective bargaining supersedes my individual contract with you, and I have to go on strike. I can defy my own union, but then I'll be a scab and I'll never be allowed to work in union projects again. And that's a problem. So yes, yeah, all these actors who have contracts to be in these movies, if there's that is superseded by the collective bargaining done on their behalf by their union with the collective bargaining done on behalf of the studio. So yeah, that takes priority. And there are, by the way, I'm way oversimplifying this, but there are mechanisms within the collective bargaining that do give, in lieu of the agreements between the union and the studios, that does give outs to individual clauses in that to individuals. But again, that's getting a whole ball of wax. Basically, the collective bargaining contract supersedes anything by an individual contract. So there's that. Okay. Let's see. Where are we at? We are at, why can't I get this to move? There we go. We are at Jesse Roy, who writes, VOT is bad and effed up. Yes, they are. That has been the whole message of the boys universe, that VOT is pretty messed up. All right. David Cushmore writes, is there going to be the Bad Bash season 3? Somebody asked me the same question the other day. Is there going to be the bad, probably instead of bash, you meant batch, Is there going to be the Bad Batch season 3, the Mandalorian season 4? What's next for Stars? Yeah, you did ask me this question before. This exact question. Is the Marvels going to be good and any good? Anyway, I'm going to answer one of those questions. When it comes to the Bad Batch, the simple answer is I don't know and I don't care. I think the Bad Batch is terrible. It was funny because when the Bad Batch season 1 started, I surprisingly liked the first couple of episodes because I hated the Bad Batch episodes in the last season of the Clone Wars. I hated those episodes. So when they were launching a Bad Batch series, I had no hope for it. But, you know, me, I'll give anything that's Star Wars at least a try. And I watched the first couple of episodes of Bad Batch and I'm like, you know, wow, this is actually pretty good. This isn't all that bad. And then I got to like see episode 3 and episode 4. I'm like, no, this is bad. Now it's bad. And I kind of ditched on it for all that. Yeah, as far as Mandalorian season 4, probably will be. But who knows? We'll see. Okay. Let's see. Next up is Mum-Ra, the Ever Living, writes, how about Deadpool, the X Creation? Excretion? Is that what you're going for there? That might work. Mum-Ra also writes, I saw an AI scam video ad on Insta with The Rock. It used his voice to trick folks into signing up for a stimulus check. Oh my God. Can't be legal. Should he sue? 100% that's not legal. And 100%, if you're talking about, if that ad is on Instagram better be careful because they have legal exposure. They have liability exposure to that. That is 1000% illegal. And Instagram themselves can get in trouble for that. Like massively. So not only could somebody sue, like I'm not even talking to The Rock. If anybody falls for that, not only could they sue, and I mean, Instagram themselves could be sued for airing that. So keep an eye on that. Maybe, are you sure it was an ad and not somebody just made that on their own Instagram account? Because I'd be shocked that Instagram actually allowed that to go out. So, yeah, okay. Anyway, hey guys, that's all the question. I'm going to turn off, or did I? Yeah, I had turned off the super chat. So there we go. That's all the time we have for those questions. But you know what? I am still going to take some time here to answer a few more before we do. And you know what? Before I got the super chats fired in, we did get one more. One more did come in here. Let me see if I can get it to appear. Hold on a second. I'm not sure I can get this to pop up on my screen, but one more did come in that I did not. Yeah, it's not here on the screen. Maybe it's because it came in just as I was canceling it. But David Cushmore writes, is Tom Cruise going to do Top Gun 3? I doubt it. Is Mission Impossible 7 Part 2 the end of the... Hey guys, when you write in a question, you get to ask one question, okay? Is Tom Cruise going to do Top Gun 3? No. I don't believe he has. I think he said that pretty definitively that he's not going to do Part 3. So yeah, there's that. All right. Now, with that all said, I'm going to go over to the live chat and just take a couple of questions from the live chat. I see Antonius writes, John, it's being reported by Variety and the Hollywood Reporter that Superman and Lois will conclude in 2024 with its 4th and final season. Isn't that like super old news by now? I thought that was already understood and old news. Like, I think they announced like 4 or 5 months ago that, okay, they're going to do season 4, but they're getting rid of a lot of the cast. They cut the budget in half and it's going to have like a lot fewer episodes and that's going to be their final season. I think that was announced a long time ago. So I don't think that's anything new. Hugh Jackson writes, John, what are your thoughts on how Doom Patrol is ending? You know what? I love Doom Patrol. I haven't started watching the final season yet. Have not started watching the final season yet. So I don't know, but I've really loved the show and I look forward to getting on that and probably going to binge just all of it once it's probably done airing. Let's see. Godzilla is saying, will anyone die in Gen V tonight? Well, considering I think probably somebody's died in every episode, not necessarily the major players. I'm going to guess yes, somebody will. I have no idea who, where, when, whatever, But yes, I think somebody will. You know what my guess is? The kid's Golden Boy's brother, who's kind of been one of the main plot devices dudes. I can't remember the kid's name now. Anyway, I think that dude, the kid who committed the puppet massacre, I think he dies. Again, I don't know that. I'm just taking a wild guess. Let's see here. Dap Boy saying you're watching Titans versus Steelers tonight. I'll definitely be watching parts of that. Let's see here. Johnny Vu's writing, hey, John, are you going home for Christmas? Maybe. What I want to do is go home before Christmas. We're trying to work that out. But yeah, I'll be going home sometime in the next 2 months. I'm going to go home. And when exactly, I'm not 100% sure yet. There's some stuff that we're trying to work out and figure out. Let's see. Queen writes, I remember a show called Photon. I used to watch it Saturday mornings. I don't have any recollection of that, but it sounds like a show I would have watched. Let's see. Anything else? That's all the ones I'm seeing for now, guys. So, all right, we've already gone well over an hour. So that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and making this little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the John Campea YouTube channel. Thank you guys so very much for your support. We've already got a bunch of stuff lined up that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Hopefully one of those things is going to be the end of the strike. I'm hearing it could end tonight. Who knows? It better end tomorrow sometime. So hopefully that, but a bunch of other things as well. We'll look forward to seeing you then. So that will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.